Immigration to drive up housing. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. I want to have a look at this article from news.com.au, which is discussing, well, the potential impact of immigration on housing. So the big flaw in the falling house price predictions. We're starting to see them emerge. Well, we're getting conflicting messages. One day, and I'll do this intentionally, I'll go through the news and one day we'll go through one article, houses shooting up, and another one, houses shooting down. And I want to, well, be abreast of what's coming out in the media, but we have to see how the people with different ideological positions and different political motives are making predictions on this. But we also have to really keep in the back of our mind that there's a incentive for state and federal governments, probably even council, to, well, encourage the status quo and to maintain a ever-increasing property prices. Sure, they'll give lip service to housing affordability, but I think it's just that, lip service. Everyone. I mean, come on. You've got, even in Victoria, you know, another land tax that's going to sting developers, going to sting people selling property. Maybe they've held it in family for some time and want to reap the rewards. Nope. Victorian government wants a slice of that too. So you're going to see. There's some people that think taxes are the solution to our problems. There are people out there that will say that in the comments. It's ludicrous. Anyway. So, there was supposed to be some relief on the horizon for Aussies wanting to buy a home in a crazy market. But now there's a big issue. Trying to get a foot on the property ladder in Australia right now is harder than it has ever been. But for Aussies looking to buy, there have been predictions that have given them some hope for the future. When the pandemic hit, some of us looking to buy mistakenly believed that prices could tumble amid widespread economic turmoil. Well, yes. We had our first recession in 28 years. International tourism is non-existent. International students are barely trickling back. Migration has stopped. But we didn't count for the government, well, implementing home builder schemes to prop up the entire housing sector, everyone. Building approvals shot up. A cash rate insanely low, guys. You know, and you've got JobKeeper keeping people employed. It's a completely artificial economy. And here's the thing. Any idiot that says we're in a free market economy or blames capitalism, the free market, laissez-faire economy for all our woes, we're not in a free market economy. We're in a crony capitalistic lobbying economy. It's the people who have the greatest political power. Australia is a utilitarian socialist country, everyone. Once you look at it through that lens, once you look at our country through that lens, then it all just becomes clear why all the crap's going on, you know. So, anyway, it's a little depressing, but that's why you become a stoic. Then you won't get us upset. So, precisely the opposite has materialized, with economists predicting Australian house prices will have surged by a whopping 22% by the end of the year. Now, you've got to remember that's coming off a decrease. You know, housing did go down a little bit, but it's bounced right back. It's because it's Australian gold. It's part of our culture. It's where people secure their wealth. It's where people save for their retirement, other than their super. It's in property. But the good news, for those looking to buy at least, was that a cooling period would come in the coming years. However, one of the nation's leading economists has now warned that already skyrocketing house prices could rise even further because of government plans to aggressively increase the level of immigration into Australia in the coming years. We've seen calls of that from the New South Wales Premier. 2 million additional migrants coming to Australia to address the skills gap. Fantastic. You know, I say bring them over, but let's get some new starter cities happening around the country. Why is everyone in Australia living in like 5 cities? Most of us are living in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. You know, then there's a few in Adelaide. I think 3 people in Tasmania. I'm being facetious, but you understand the argument I'm making here. AMP Capital Chief Economist Shane Oliver told news.com.au the red-hot property market was showing signs of slowing down. Even though the annual gain this year has been very strong, there has been a progressive slowing in the monthly increases from about March, which was the peak, he said. More recently, we've slowed down to around 1.5% a month, and I suspect that slowing will continue through next year. And that's because of a gap in fixed mortgage rates, worsening affordability, which makes it harder to get in. And then we're also seeing an increase in interest rate buffers from the APRA. By 2023, he had predicted this slowdown would have started to see house prices drop somewhere between 5 to 10%. This was predicted on the idea that immigration increases very gradually in the coming years, like the federal government was projecting as recently as the budget. However, there are now powerful government figures like New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrotty and Federal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg advocating for much higher levels of immigration. So, the New South Wales Premier is lobbying for an increase in Australia's net migration to an unprecedented 400,000 a year for 5 years, meaning the nation would welcome 2 million migrants in that period. And Mr. Frydenberg said Australia needs to rethink the migration targets after losing almost 100,000 people last financial year. Mr. Oliver said, such plans would have a big impact on house prices in the coming years. Yep, 100% it would. That's different. This is the thing, it's not natural population growth. It's boom, instant families, boom, instant people coming over. And that's going to put a strain on the current infrastructure. Look at potable water, everyone. Potable water has not kept up with the increase in population here in Australia. If immigration is suddenly ramped up again, as the New South Wales government has been proposing, and you're actually running immigration above pre-COVID levels for a while to make up for the shortfall that occurred through the pandemic, that could turn a price decline in 2023 into a price rise, he said. He predicted that if the New South Wales government's immigration plan was followed, house prices would jump about 5% by 2023 and rents would lift about 7%. That's the big issue here, everyone. As well. He said that for every 250,000 immigrants that come into the nation, Australia would need to build 80,000 houses. In recent times, we've been sort of getting on top of the supply shortfall in Australia because of the lack of immigrants, he said. If we quickly ramp up immigration again, then that would rapidly take us back into severe supply shortfall, which would put upward pressure on rents and prices. Immigration is not the only factor influencing house prices, and economists predict a lot will depend on other variables such as interest rates and any further restrictions on borrowing. However, it adds to the already sky-high demand for housing. Mr. Oliver said he wasn't against immigration in any way, saying it was a good thing for Australia, but he and other economists are calling on governments to increase housing stock to keep up with rising demands. Well, the government needs to get out of the way for building. They need to reduce the red tape. They need to reduce just the pain that it is and the costs associated with it. Here's a start, how about we get rid of just Section J on the NCC for all domestic and commercial projects? Well, it's different in the housing classification. So let's get rid of all the energy efficiency requirements. That all adds cost, guys. I know it makes you feel better. I know it makes you feel nice, but it all adds cost to housing, all of these things. And the potential environmental benefits take so long to pay back, the house will probably be demolished before it's even reaped the benefit of it. Another big issue in the post-COVID aftermath is whether people continue to want to move to regional Australia, taking pressure off cities. If you see an ongoing push away from cities towards regional Australia, then that can take pressure off city prices and become a permanent phenomenon, he said. The good news for buyers is that it's becoming increasingly likely that interest rates will increase earlier than expected. And this could see house prices drop by 20% for every 1% increase. Experts believe it is becoming more likely the Reserve Bank of Australia will be forced to increase interest rates earlier than expected due to rising inflation. ANZ senior economist Felicity Emmett said recent inflation reports had prompted a rethink of Australia's outlook over the next year or so. It was very different to nearly everyone's expectations, she told news.com.au. Ms. Emmett said, it was initially thought that supply bottlenecks due to the pandemic would only see a temporary rise on the prices of goods, but there also seems to be the beginnings of a pickup in wages. Labour shortages will possibly see through to higher wages, she said, and that's a lot more of a permanent feature. Well, a few things to talk about here, guys. It's true the labour shortages are seeing a slight increase in wages, but it isn't uniform, and we'll have to see if it actually lasts. The other risk is that it could, further incentivize offshoring or automation as well of jobs, because, that's what's been happening in the past. So the RBA isn't happy with the wage rises. It's not increasing as much as they want. Maybe that'll put a dampener on any potential increase in the RBA's cash rate. Immigration coming to Australia, I mean, it's part of our entire culture. It's part of our heritage and how the country built itself up. But the problem is our infrastructure isn't keeping demand with immigration, and the expectations that we have these days for our quality of life is somewhat different, I would say, from in the past. You know, a little two-bed fibro shack in the city on a small block or on a decent-sized block. Well, those days are gone, everyone. What do you all think? So I'd like you to check out this last video I did just about the increasing interest rates from some of the big banks that's starting to be felt by everyone else. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Enjoy your stein of coffee, and, well, watch out for those house price increases. See you next time.